Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Roast Podcast, episode number 66. I am Brendan.
And I'm Nate.
All right. So we're going to go over UFC 264, mainly, obviously, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, Gilbert Burns, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Tai Tuivasa, and Greg Hardy. Some other fights on the card, some interesting things, interesting judging decisions, as well as outcomes of the fight. Some interesting referee decisions as well. Before we get all that started, if you would like and subscribe, if you like what we're doing here, please tell somebody else about it. Comment down below. Let me know what you think about what we say. I will definitely have a conversation with you. I love talking about MMA. It's my favorite thing on the planet.
Hell yeah. Right. Let's get into it.
All right. So let's go right into the main event. Dustin Poirier defeating Conor McGregor via doctor stoppage. Conor broke his leg. So this is the second event this year where a fight ended via leg break.
Granted, this was less clear in terms of causal.
Yeah,
granted, so like it was a leg break, but it's not like it wasn't that instantaneous full on Anderson Silva of I just broke it on your other shin, which still may have been the cause, may like somewhat undetermined.
So here are my notes for the fight. So if you guys haven't seen this before, normally I watch a fight, I take notes while it's going on, and then I go back and I'll rewatch interesting fights or ones that I question the decision. So my three notes are Conor's opening up with a lot of kicks.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that they didn't stop the fight, and Conor leg snapped. Like those are the three notes I have. So I did note like he stepped back with his left leg. And he misstepped and it rolled underneath and like it just snapped. Like it wasn't his ankle. The bottom of the leg snapped. Obviously, it's unfortunate, even if you hate Conor or whatever, you know, and obviously his attitude post-fight was kind of disgusting. All of it's gross. Like the lead up to this fight was very gross. I didn't like any of it. And I never want to see anybody get injured, especially in something so gruesome as a leg break. Like, I don't care who you are or how much I dislike you. I'd rather see you get, knocked out or submitted, or your ass beaten for 25 minutes. That's not what I was rooting for here. I wanted to see an interesting fight. But what was your take on the fight as long as it went on for the for the 5 minutes? Yeah, it was the whole first round.
I was finished the first round. I mean, Poirier looked great. It seemed like he did exactly what he wanted to do to Conor. Yeah, he took some shots, but nothing that seemed to phase him in any form or fashion. And then he took Conor down, and I mean, him taking Conor down and dominating Conor for most of the round was effectively the round. What, Conor getting back to his feet and then off his feet was, the very last portion of the round for the majority of it before then. Poirier.
Well, I mean, so Conor was touching up Poirier, just like in the first fight. He was touching him up in that first round. In the beginning of the first round, landing a lot of good kicks, landing a lot of good, not switching stance punches, but he was outstriking Poirier just like he did in the first fight.
Then Poirier got him down.
Exactly. So, well, in this case, he dove on him and went for a submission. Like he actually went for a guillotine, and it was interesting because he didn't jump guard. He let him kind of like rest on top. So you can't really get the torque that you need from the bottom unless you have guard or at least half guard for a guillotine like that. Standing guillotines is different. That's all. I mean, that's up in the air. Like a bunch of different stuff happens. Anyway, he gave up position to go for that submission, and it was very strange to watch him do that. And then when it went down to the ground, like, I mean, he took a little bit of damage down there, but it's nothing that we haven't seen before. And then he gets back up, and the fight, Poirier looked good. I think if that fight goes on, Poirier finishes him anyway, because Conor doesn't age well. He doesn't age well. Nope. Like, the longer the fight goes, the worse he looks. Usually.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. By the end of the first round, before the ankle snaps, I felt like barring some freak knockout, which Conor is capable of, it was going to be Poirier taking it home probably in the third round. That's what I as I got to the end of the first round, that's kind of what my sense was. It was like, all right, this is probably gonna wrap up by the third round.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to see this fight. Do you want to see this fight again?
No.
Yeah, me either. I'm done with it. I'm like, I don't really care unless it's for a title.
Yeah.
I don't. And then I saw some reactions like Conor's done, like he should retire. Dude,
No.
Poirier is the best, in my opinion. Poirier is the best lightweight active lightweight on the planet. I really believe that. I think he beats everyone else, including Charles Oliveira. So losing to him is no, that's not bad.
To say Conor's done is also silly because what did Conor make on this fight? We're talking upwards of 10 million.
Probably, and on top of that, it's probably going to break the top 10. Like in the top 10,
it's going to be another top 10 pay-per-view for the UFC.
Probably top 5.
Yeah.
Again, like he has of the top 5, I think he has 3 or 4 of them. He has number 1, number 2.
He could finish his career having all 5.
That's what I mean.
This is something that he's still capable of getting. So why would he to say he's done is silly, and especially because of to most people because of the way it ended, it doesn't devalue his stock at all. All right,
yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, it's like that. There's honestly probably outside. There's no better way for him to lose than what happened. That was the perfect way for him to lose to Poirier.
Realistic, honestly, of the ways to lose, there's freak injury, bad stoppage,
maybe
bad decision.
A cut, like a doctor stoppage from a cut.
Any sort of doctor stoppage.
That would have, doctor stoppage from a cut probably would have been better because then much less rehab. But because it's going to take a little bit to get over that injury. But it's still.
I thought they was going to stop the fight like when he was getting beat. It's so weird to me. We don't have to get into this right now because there's some other stuff I want to talk about as far as judging or refereeing goes. Is that he didn't immediately go in and stop it when, given other circumstances, I've seen them stop that fight. I would see a ref stop a fight like that where he's getting punished like that on the bottom.
Yes.
It's interesting that it didn't happen, and then I don't know. I'm done with this trilogy. I don't need to see a quadrilogy. I don't need to see a 4th fight unless it's for a title.
And it's just toxic. It's not
like
it
Conor.
Is not, it's not good. It's not a good animosity. It's toxic, and that kind of toxic animosity usually doesn't go it doesn't go well for Conor's career when that level of animosity builds up between two fighters. That's when dumb stuff starts to happen.
He's been like this forever. It's just when he's not winning, they're like, oh, I can't believe you would say that stuff like afterwards. But what if he went in there and knocked out Poirier? You're going to tell me everybody isn't going to be like, well, he said he was going to do it. Like, everybody's so fickle. I can't stand it. It brings out the best and the worst in people is talking about McGregor. I like the way he fights. I think he's still one of the best strikers in the UFC. I think there's no doubt that he is the most successful UFC fighter in history. In a lot of ways, yes.
Yeah.
The first person to hold 2 belts at once, monetarily, fame. He started a freaking
pay-per-view wise, breaking out of the UFC to get the Mayweather fight. Like getting the UFC on board with that is so enormous. While he's still under contract with the UFC to allow him to do the Mayweather fight, like that, for any other fighter in the world, that would have been unheard of.
Yeah, that's not happening for anybody else.
Exactly. So he built up more power than any other UFC fighter to leverage what he wanted to do and get the UFC on board with it. So
all right. So obviously the next step for Dustin is to beat Charles Oliveira, get the belt, and then I would like to see a Justin rematch if Gagey isn't matched up with someone else.
Hell yeah.
We got Beneil Dariush ranked at number 3. I think it's his time. I think it's his turn. I think he deserves a title shot at some point here. Maybe one more win for him. Michael Chandler still in the mix, coming off the loss. I wouldn't mind Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Both coming off of losses. People are doubting both of them going forward in their careers. Conor McGregor versus Rafael dos Anjos.
I don't know if I want to see. I want to see Tony Ferguson because I think there was a level of that fight should have happened before, and I think people still want to see it.
Well, it never got scheduled.
If there was, but there was the talk about it.
Sure,
Like,
but there was the same thing for Rafael dos Anjos, but that fight got scheduled. Just Rafael broke his foot and couldn't go in there, and he was talking shit. He was like, "This guy made fun of me when I broke my foot, and now this is." I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah. I mean, you can shit on him all you want, and yes,
mhm.
you know, karma sucks and whatever. I thought that quote from Poirier was really good. Karma isn't a bitch; it's a mirror. I love that. That's such a good quote. Also, Poirier, fantastic. He's just nothing but he's like, this guy's an asshole. He's grabbing my glove, pulling me down for those up kicks. I try to warn him about it. Like, he's a scumbag. And he's like, but you know what? Like, he's like, he's talking about murder and like murdering me. Like, you can't come back from that. That being said, I hope he gets home safe to his family, like his beautiful family. Like Poirier is such a class
Oh,
act. I love him. And then my favorite thing he said, he goes, for all you guys who are booing out there, you can kiss my whole asshole.
no, Poirier is freaking awesome. He's one of my favorites.
Oh man, yeah, he's great for the sport. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's finally got some popularity, beating Conor twice. Conor versus any of those guys in the top. I wouldn't put him against Beneil Dariush. I don't think there's anything to gain for either one of them
Islam
there.
Makhachev is fighting next week, I think. Is he
I
the
don't
next
want to
fight?
see that either.
Yeah.
Dan Hooker is bouncing around there. There's lots of good fights.
I'm
Any one of them's good for Conor, but Conor's only
I'm
taking
I might throw Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I think that would
fun
be an
fight.
interesting one. Yeah.
Fun fight. I think
Two
that one or
hard
Conor versus
hitters.
Gagey.
Yeah. I think that's a good matchup for both of them. Michael Chandler. They're both coming off a loss. They're both in the top 5. I don't know. We'll see where Conor is coming up,
Well,
but I mean,
Conor
yeah,
was 5 from before this weekend, and
he'll
let's
still be
see,
5. Let's be real.
he should be. There's nothing else happened. Like nobody
Yeah.
else, like and Tony Ferguson is coming off of 2 losses, and he's ranked 6. So what are you gonna do? Drop Conor down 2 spots to 7 and put up? That makes no sense.
Yeah. But I think
So
Michael Chandler's a good dance partner and has enough of a background because of his fame from Bellator that I think he could. I see that being a good setup for Conor.
I think it'd be fun. It's a good
Yeah.
stylistic matchup. I think him or Gagey, they both have not similar styles but similar weaknesses, where they come out guns blazing, and McGregor could take advantage of that. But anywho, that's
Or
the main
Gaethje
event.
could take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's the main event, and like I'm kind of done with this whole negativity thing. Like it makes me sad.
There's also the Diaz trilogy lurking in the back.
I don't want to.
I,
I don't want to see that
I'm not
either.
saying I want to see it, but that's
Yes, that's
always
always there, and it's gross. It's that one. That one for me is like my least desired fight. I would rather see Conor fight everybody else in the division other than Nate again. Like I don't want. He's gonna like. I don't
yeah.
see how he beats Nate another time.
I think I'd rather see him versus Jake Paul versus him versus Nate.
Yeah, that one I would watch. All right, the co-main event. One of my fights to look out for: Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson. Before I say anything else, I am a huge Stephen Thompson fan. I think he's an amazing fighter, an amazing person, a genuinely good human being. All evidence shows that he's like an outstanding person. So I love the dude. I also really like Gilbert Burns. I think his skills have definitely come up in the past couple of years, and he's putting it all together. This answered a lot of questions for me. I don't think Stephen Thompson would be a good matchup for Usman. I think Usman would just be able to take it down. If Burns can take you down that easy, Usman's going to be able to do it 10 times over. So, now saying that, Burns, when he got him down, was able to control him on top, which was incredible. Like that's
Yes.
not normal. Like Thompson's usually able to get up a little bit unless he's been like rocked.
I mean, because of Thompson's training partners and history, he's usually known to have either extremely good takedown defense or be able to pop up quickly.
Right.
He's usually not kept down.
Right. Burns looked really awkward on his feet because, like we always say, hard to look good against Stephen Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
The takedown in the second round did nothing. I just made a note of that because I get sick of when they're like, well, with that takedown in the second round, he didn't do anything with it. I think Thompson won that round. And then how they ended the fight really pissed me off. Mark Goddard just let him hit. He let Burns hit Stephen Thompson in illegal spots. It was back of the head, spine, and back of the neck. You're not allowed to hit those. Like your entire spine, the back, the entire back line
Vertebrae. Yep.
of your body.
All your vertebrae.
Every vertebrae is like, no, I think you can hit him in the coccyx, which is the bottom one. I think you can.
Fair enough.
I'm just kidding. But anyway, no, like all of your spine, you're not allowed to hit back there. You're also not allowed to hit on the mohawk. So anyway, it's a banned spot. It was not in transition. Thompson had his head tucked down, and Burns repeatedly struck him in the back of the head and in the back of the neck. Those are illegal strikes. They always are, always have been, always will be, and he should have been punished for that. That being said, if he was, it would have been 28-28 on all scorecards, making this fight a draw. So,
which would have been awful.
Yeah, right. Do I think Thompson won the fight? Absolutely not. But I've made a hard stance the past couple weeks, and I know I'm getting loud about it, but I really mean this. I am sick to death with everybody getting away with fucking bullshit fouls. It's disgusting. Either punish everybody or stop making them fouls. Get rid of all the fouls then. If you're just going to willy-nilly allow them to do whatever the fuck they want, stop calling them a foul and let them do it. I don't give a shit if the guy gets kicked in the nuts 30 times. It's not a foul anymore. Let it go because you're letting it fucking happen. You're not taking points away at the end. I don't care if it's in the last second of the fight or the first second of the fight. It's equally as bad. So stop. It's so stupid.
We have beat it to death, but eye pokes, grabbing the cage, everything that head. Is, everything that we talk about up to this point, it's suggestions. And honestly, there's an incentive for fighters to test the bounds to see what they can get away with.
There's no incentive
and not to worry about it in terms of training. Yeah, like they're really, pretty much the only they get to go until they get a warning, and even then, they might get another. Like, there's fighters that get multiple warnings. I know, like depending on the foul and the ref and everything else. Like, it's.
Hey, I said not to grab the fence. Are you grabbing the fence again? I told you not to do that. Get your fingers out of the fence. Whack, whack. I said don't do that. Do that again. In the next 10 seconds that's left in the fight, I'm taking a point. Okay, I'm going to not do that for the next 10 seconds. Thanks.
Yeah, I just stopped him from taking me down and dominating me 4 times. So, yeah, I'm fine with that.
So this is one of those scenarios where it would have clearly changed the outcome of the fight. It was very obvious that it would have done that.
I would argue the fight that had the most impact on any division on this entire card.
Outside of, obviously, Poirier getting a title fight, but I think that kind of was already in the mix anyway, so I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would agree with you a lot. Absolutely on that. Yeah, because Gilbert Burns now keeps his spot being number 2. I still think he has what it takes to beat Usman.
Both of those fighters were going to probably get a title shot against Usman based on the outcome of this fight.
Thompson for sure. I don't know about Burns. I don't know if he gets it. He called out Masvidal.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Well, the thing is, he already lost the champ, right? Thompson was a fresh matchup. That's one of the biggest reasons why I think if he got this win. Leon Edwards obviously is still out there. He did get the win against Diaz.
And I wasn't thinking that Burns is going to be the next person up, but he's sitting pretty right now to where he easily could get plugged in.
Dude, I think Masvidal just needs to fight Edwards, and then Gilbert Burns goes up and fights a champ one more time.
Yeah.
And knock it out right now. I think he does have what it takes to beat Usman, but Usman is getting better every fight because of Trevor Whitman. And, Usman needs all the fights he can get as fast as he can because he's not getting any younger. He's getting in the upper 30s. Like, this is going to be it. So,
he's done a good job outside of Leon Edwards and Stephen Thompson cleaning out that division. But I think now we see that Stephen Thompson's probably not going to get to the dance again.
Oh, and he beat Leon Edwards already.
He did
before he was champ.
That's right, he did.
Yeah, Neil Magny hasn't fought him. Vicente Luque hasn't fought him. Michael Chiesa, that's a good matchup. Hasn't fought him. Jeff Neal, Damian Maia has, but he's not going anywhere near him anyway.
But even there's not a bunch of hungry sharks really around him the way there are in other divisions for how much can be shaken up. Like he's sitting pretty in that division right now.
Yeah, there's not a lot of interesting matchups because he beat a lot of people on the way up there, and then he's taken out a lot of the guys who are just now fighting each other at the top. So it's hard. It's hard for him to get a matchup. Good job for Burns. Stupid shit at the end of the third round. You didn't need to do it. You had the third round locked in, and you weren't going to finish the fight with his head tucked in your lap anyway. That's kind of I think it was more of a heat of the moment thing. I don't think he's a douchebag, but it's one of those things where it really pissed me off because that's a great opportunity to put a line in the sand and be like, hey, you know the fucking rules. Everybody knows the rules. Don't do that shit. And because of that, now it's a draw. You can still move forward. We can still give you a title shot and whatever. It's just that's not going to be a win for you because you're an idiot and you didn't control your tools.
My hope is that someone in his camp calls him out on it, or at least checks him on it. Just be like, hey.
Yeah, that was stupid. Why'd you do that?
That was fucking stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he looked great. Being said,
other than that,
he looked really good.
He could not have fought a better fight against Stephen Thompson.
Yeah, he did exactly what he had to do, is get him to the ground. He wasn't going to win on the feet.
All right. Well, before the Gilbert Burns Stephen Thompson fight was a fight that I think basically got plugged in here just because they wanted to guarantee a first round knockout, just in case everything else went to decision, which, was a better than likely chance based on who was going to be fighting in this card. We have Chiesa versus Greg Hardy. Now I'm curious to hear what you think.
Sorry, there was a car alarm going off, and
I know
don't
that's
know
why I just kept going with it. But I started talking about Chiesa versus Greg Hardy.
Yeah, no, I heard. I was listening.
So, yeah, plugged in for an obvious. We just want at least one first round knockout in the main card.
And they've been putting Greg Hardy on main cards for a very long time now. He is 7-4 as a pro. He stepped in there. I have one note for this one. Hardy finally gets in the firefight and he gets KO'd. It was going to happen eventually with his skill set and being at heavyweight. Like, he was going to get tested. His chin was going to get tested. Tai Tuivasa hits hard. I mean, he cracked Tai.
Oh, yeah.
And Tai was wobbly, but he just rushed in.
Tai clapped back.
Yep. And that was the end of it.
Greg Hardy has been a very hesitant fighter. Like, he has been very careful and hesitant in previous fights. It's something that we've definitely talked about before. Like, he's been very careful about coming up.
I think he had the skills to win this fight. I think Tai was doing a good job eating away at that leg. And then, they just got in that fight. Like, it was a 50-50. That's a 50-50 scenario. Either one of them could have come on top. I'm like, Tai Tuivasa isn't like some unbeatable monster or anything. He can still get taken down and dominated like he has been. Same with Greg Hardy. It's just, that was a 50-50. It was a coin flip. They flipped the coin and Greg Hardy got knocked out. That's the end of it. It wasn't a clean knockout. Obviously, he was, still with it on the ground and covering up.
And there was some talk of that could have gone on a little longer.
Yeah.
And
slightly early stoppage, couple more punches.
The worst stoppage on the main card.
Absolutely not. No, that one comes at the opening fight. Real quick note. No, not a quick note. I got a couple for these ones. So a bantamweight fight. We had Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. So Yana has the loudest noises in the game. Like, she makes so much noise. She's like a female tennis player out there.
Fucking serving up those knockouts.
Yeah. I love Aldana. I think she's great. Obviously, when she fought Holly Holm, you saw that there was, I hate when people say there's levels to this, but her striking wasn't on par with Holly Holm, and she was slightly behind and she couldn't get it going, but against everyone else, she seems to just do work. Aldana also missed weight by 4 pounds. That's not even close. You're bantamweights. Like, here's the thing. They're female fighters. We do have to consider, like, sometimes,
it can be harder to cut weight.
Yeah, well, one, as a female fighter, it's already harder to cut weight. Like, women have a harder time cutting weight than men. That's just straight out one thing. And then, obviously for 1 week out of every month, it's going to be even harder because your body does retain more water weight. And, fighters have talked about that. Chris Cyborg especially has talked about that, how, she was taking medication to help her with cutting weight and staying healthy while she was on her time of the month. And it's, that could, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything about it. But that's something to consider when it was a weight cut missed that bad. She has not had problems in the past. It seems very awkward and weird. Not a full win for me, but Kunitskaya is not a top 5 fighter. I don't know what the hell that was.
That brings up an interesting point, which before we move on, I don't know, it just came to my mind. What would you say about having more flexibility in the range around the weight class for women?
I think there's a good argument for it, especially if it lines up. That's the thing, though, because some women, like I don't know. No women listen to this anyway, so nobody cares. So I think it's just guys talking to guys here. Because if women hear any dude talking about, it's like, you have no idea, shut the fuck up, blah blah blah. It is more difficult, right? But it's also it can fluctuate, right? It's not always at the same time of the month for everybody. It's not always. Sometimes stress can induce like lighter or stronger periods. It can fluctuate in time. Obviously, they all know about, everybody's syncing up because the girls are all together. That does happen. I'm not saying it's whatever. What I'm saying is it's a variable. It's not always, hey, this week out of every month. And then here's the other thing. Let's say if it was that steady and we could count on it, and then a woman would never take a fight in that time frame. What if 2 women were on different schedules and could never fight each other? You know what I mean? Like there could.
You also have to factor that there's variation in how long it can last, and you're introducing extreme exertion into the mix, which extreme exertion for everybody fucks with your hormones. Like you start reading test levels from dudes near the end of their camp. You can get shit all over the place or extremely low. Yeah. Like unbelievably low test levels just because of how the combination of weight cutting and extreme endurance exertion.
Did a woman pee in this cup?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a woman. It was Chris Weidman. Oh my.
Yeah. So same thing. Like regardless of who you're testing, you're going to get those extreme fluctuations in hormones, and that's going to have an effect on it too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know what the answer is for women there. I wouldn't be more lenient. I think a more hyper awareness over what's going on and like the chances of that happening for you if it happens to fall around the same time where you're scheduled to fight, right? If you're like, oh shit, like this is gonna happen around then, so I might have to start cutting weight earlier. Plenty of women deal with it all the time, and I don't think it's a valid excuse to like allow them to miss weight. I think that's unacceptable always. You're right. There might be a better way to handle it for the female fighters. But Aldana looked good. Her striking looked crisp. Kunitskaya looks like like she should have been fighting in 1995. So it's the same problem I have with all of the thinner female divisions. It's hard to find challengers, and I don't see her. Maybe Aldana goes up and fights Nunes. Maybe we could do that, but I don't know. That whole division's a crap show for me. Okay.
Let's talk about my favorite fight of this card.
This was really fun to watch, but it wasn't what you think. Like, it wasn't back and forth like at all. There was a little bit of that mid-fight, and throughout the fight, there was some back and forth a little bit.
All right. So did you look up? Terrible with the last name. Chris's background prior to this fight.
Motino.
So, did you catch any of his background from kind of the prior for him coming in?
No.
So this dude, this is his first fight in the UFC.
Yeah, I know. He took it on 11 days' notice.
Yeah. He works at a paint factory in Massachusetts.
Oh. Like, all right.
This dude is literally just like, all right, fuck it, taking this shot, fighting in other, I'd say lower end, but non-UFC organizations. All right, record. He just happens to, someone in the UFC was giving him the look. They were starting to consider bringing it in, and short notice, they gave him that shot. And this dude literally walked from fucking working at a paint factory to fighting one of the most popular fighters in that division, and one of the most hyped fighters in that division.
That's what happened to DJ.
And I don't care what anyone says. He fucking took him the whole distance.
Yes. We can talk about the stoppage near the end there. Let's talk about Sugar Sean O'Malley here real quick. He looked great for a majority of the fight. Obviously, he set the record for most strikes landed in a fight at over 238, I think or 228, 218. I don't remember what the record was beforehand, but it was held by Nate Diaz. At 200, I think it was 238, and I'm pretty sure he broke it. He was getting tired at random points in the fight. It was very strange, and I think it was almost like that Conor McGregor type thing where you land a couple big shots and you're used to people going out, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I got to keep doing this for how long? The 3 more minutes in this round? Oh god! And then he got his second win about him, and then I thought he looked great the entire fight. They were making a lot about how Moutinho was not getting put out, and O'Malley was looking tired and this and that. But in the meantime, O'Malley was piecing him up the entire time. He destroyed him. It was not close.
Yeah, it's not like, barring some fucking freak knockout, it's not like Chris was putting a back and forth, or it's not like it was 1-1 going into the third round.
Yes, it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't close at all. And then with 30 seconds left in the fight, after being, struck in the face over 200 times, then all of a sudden, during the middle of an exchange, they're exchanging back and forth. There's no wobbling. There's no I'm against the fence. He's not on the ground. He's not even like closing his eyes.
Basically middle of the ring.
Yeah, sure.
Gets the ref stoppage right after he throws a punch.
Yep, with 30 seconds left in the fight.
All right. Yeah, there was like 3 shots where he didn't have good head movement prior to that, but then he dipped and got some head movement back and then threw a punch, and it was basically right after he threw the punch and Sean had thrown a punch back at him is when
and then Herb steps in.
Yeah, it's like, what? Hold on, what are we doing here?
One of the weirdest stoppages I've ever seen.
It was like there was a delay in when Herb wanted to stop it, and then what happened in between when he wanted to stop it and when he stopped it. Because I think he wanted to stop it thinking that, all right, he's not, because there was like I said, that 2-second 3-punch period where he took a couple shots and didn't seem like he was answering back. And I think that's when Herb made the decision. But then he course corrected. But Herb kind of committed to it without taking.
He's like, well, I already moved in. I can't stop now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it was weird.
It was weird.
And with 30 seconds left.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It made me kind of mad, actually, because he deserves to finish out the fight. I know he was getting pieced up, but 30 more seconds, I think he earned that being in there and not getting a TKO loss on his record. I think, because again, let's say he is in the UFC. Let's say he goes on in the UFC and does good things. He can't say, oh, well, I've never been knocked out in the UFC anymore, because everybody's going to look back on Wikipedia and they're just going to say, oh, KO, TKO win. That's all it says. That's all it's going to say. And no one's going to go back and watch this fight to find out what happened.
Without realizing the absolute grit that he brought to the fight.
Yeah, exactly.
He was not on the same skill level, but goddamn, did he bring the fight.
So I don't know if this gets O'Malley into the top 15. I don't see how it would.
I think it'd raise more question marks than confidence. Yeah, he displayed his skill level against someone that should not have been in the no offense. I'm happy Chris got the opportunity, but 9-5 fighter, first fight in the UFC, should not have been in the ring with Sean O'Malley on that kind of notice.
Apparently nobody else wanted the fight. I think other people said they wanted the fight. The UFC probably stopped it or said no, and they're like, hey, if we can't get this guy, then fine, just put someone else in there.
Just grab somebody.
And I hope they give him another fighter kind of on his level also entering the UFC for his next fight. I hope they reward him for taking this fight on 11 days' notice.
I did go follow him on Instagram because his hair game is on point. It is not always green. He rocks it pink too and purple.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, he changes it up.
All right.
Yeah. Chris is soulless on Instagram. Go follow him.
Okay, the prelims. The main fight on the prelims, Carlos Condit versus Max Griffin. Condit just looks slow, kind of out of it. A little weird. Obviously, he always has that strange style. Griffin landed a couple big shots in the first round. Condit landed shots going back and forth. I thought What was it? Was that the fight that I had a problem with?
Or was it the Nico
Actually,
Price?
no. I did have a problem with that fight. So one of the judges gave it 30. Oh no, that wasn't that one. It was the other one. Never mind. I thought Griffin won that fight. It was just Condit. I don't know. He just didn't look with it. It was weird. Like I don't know if that's just because he's old. Whatever. I don't know. Max Griffin is a coming up fighter in welterweight, so I think it's good for the brand that he gets so a little bit of recognition and a name on his record. As for Condit, maybe back to veteran fights only for him.
That's one. I think last time we talked about it, I said the same thing. Just do Condit Cowboy.
I'm down.
Shit like that. Yeah,
I'm down.
some shit like that. Like just, fucking. I don't want to call it a Masters division, but kind of create a de facto Masters bracket of fighters that you're putting against each other. Yeah, I don't want to see Condit going against hungry up and comers. No,
Yeah,
just put him against another guy with a name that is also in the same place in their career.
Yeah, like I think it's for like anybody anytime, right? This isn't just for like old UFC fans. I just mean like anybody anytime, right? Like let's say you've been watching the UFC for 10 years at any given point.
Mm-hmm.
There were fighters that were fighting 10 years ago that are probably still in the UFC and can't really compete with the new up-and-comers. So let them fight each other, and you remember those names. They were popular back when you first started watching the UFC. Like, it's going to bring back nostalgia. They can still put on good fights, obviously. We're not talking about people who are completely washed or BJ Penn style. That was a shit show. Never again.
Let's roll back Condit Lawler. Low-key, that was one of the best fights of that year. Yeah,
Lawler's already lined up.
We'll see how that goes. But depending on how that goes.
Lawler's fighting Nick Diaz. I talked about that last week. He's supposed to fight Nick Diaz, which is a baller of a fight.
And that's exactly the type of thing we're talking about. Cool.
I think Nick Diaz has bigger aspirations, but yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're good. I'm just saying I think he wants more. So I mean,
let's
as
do
far
Nick
as Carlos
Diaz
Condit
then.
also okay. They fought before.
Let's do the winner of that against Condit. Fuck it.
They fought before.
Yeah.
And I'm down with that. I'm down with both of those. All right. So kind of an awkward fight. This was my pick for fight of the night. Like I just thought it was going to be fireworks. Nico Price versus Michel Pereira. A couple things. Michel looked undisciplined as usual. A little. Sorry, he looked less disciplined than he should, but he looked more disciplined than he has in the past. He was able to put things together. He was staying tighter. Blah blah blah. First round, clearly Michel. Nico, he kind of had like an okay second round, but he's still getting pieced up. The third round, dude, Nico has like grit like nobody's fucking business. He just made Pereira like look like a bag of ass in that third round. He just put it on him and moved forward. He took everything that Pereira threw at him and just kept moving forward. Also, in the second, I think it was the second round, Michel Pereira does a backflip when Price is on the ground and kicks him in the fucking face. And Mike Smith, just fucking, he was like, oh, yep. Didn't even, no warning, no nothing. Dude, he kicked a ground opponent. We've seen titles change hands because of that shit.
He went full on pride.
Dude, like, you can do that flip as long as you land to the body. Yes, you can't do that shit.
Yeah.
How the fuck is that happening? You can't
stomp and soccer kick a opponent in the face.
No, he but yes, exactly. But what I'm saying is like you can kick someone on the ground in the body or in the shoulder, but when he backflipped, you don't have a lot of control over what's going on when you land. Like if someone moves a little bit, you could actually accidentally hit him in the head. And that's a big no-no. That's why we don't see people doing downward kicks, like axe kicks to grounded opponents, because it's dangerous for you. You're like, what's the risk to reward? The reward is I can maybe get a decent body shot in. The risk is I lose the fight via foul. Yep. Right. So a DQ, disqualification. Sorry. The fight at least should have been paused. He definitely should have had at least a point taken from him. And if that happens, guess what? We have a draw here because he's undisciplined and doing stupid shit again. Price looked awesome in the third round. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's just got so much heart. And dude, I was rooting for him. Like he just I know he ran out of time, and we fight for 3 rounds, and everybody knows that. I'm not making excuses. I just like Price is awesome. I love that dude, and he's a family guy. He always posts pictures of him hanging out with kids. He's got a really big family. He's just a good dude, and I love seeing a workhorse just fucking go at it. And he in that third round, if you're ever feeling like your day is tough, watch that fight. The first 2 rounds where he gets just destroyed. His face gets demolished. He gets body shot, taking crazy damage. And in the third round, he gets up and just fucking moves forward. Love it. Man, that was such a good fight.
Yep.
It didn't have the fireworks that I thought it would. I thought it would have gone a little bit back and forth. Pereira he was just better on the feet until he got tired. Stupid referee should have taken a point.
Should have definitely stopped the action.
Yeah, and stood him up at least.
Yes.
But you don't get warnings for kicking a ground opponent in the head. You don't get warnings for that. Historically, I don't think I've ever seen a warning. Especially
for that kind of backflip, because it wasn't. He basically just flipped and kind of just landed where he landed. There wasn't any consideration for what.
No, it was stupid.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't even him aiming for something else. He literally just did a backflip, and he was going to land on his body, and then all the announcers were like, "Whoa, wow, he backflipped into mount." Yeah, but he kicked him in the head in the process. Stupid. Yeah. Hate that shit. Anyway, right. Michel Pereira is a welterweight who is he's very interesting, a very strong guy, very big guy. I think if he ever got a little bit more honed in, I think he could make a decent challenge to Usman in the first couple rounds. Obviously, when he gets tired, it's over with. But I think his awkward style and the way he hits, I think he could catch Usman. He's one of those guys where if Usman had to face him on the way up, I think we'd be in a different scenario where Usman didn't get the title. That's what I'm saying is Usman on the way up didn't have to face the killers that are waiting there now that people have to fight. And it's a little weird that he's the champ. It's kind of what happened with Khabib.
Yeah.
Puts a stain on their title for me.
I think Usman's got a better.
He has a better record, and since he's been champ, he's definitely faced at least 2 guys who are really good and deserve the title.
I see where you're going.
Well, Masvidal, come on. Damn well Masvidal did not.
We don't have to go into it again. Let's talk about
Ryan Hall.
Saddest fight on the card for me.
Come on. Ryan Hall I love watching him fight. I thought it was fun. He's rolling in. He's doing this weird thing, grabbing the ankles, and Ilya just had none of it. He was having none of that shit. And he caught him multiple times and eventually got the ground and pound knockout with 13 seconds left in the first round.
All right. I'm going to make an argument here. I think this was good for Ryan Hall.
He's 38, dude.
I know. But I think it was good for other fighters to see that he's beatable.
Oh, you're saying so now?
I think because of this loss, if Ryan Hall had gone in there and leg locked him and submitted him, Ryan Hall maybe doesn't get a fight for the next 2 years.
Like the last time.
That's what I'm talking. If Ryan Hall goes in there and just does what he does and rips off his ankle, it's all right, cool. Now Ryan Hall's 40 the next time he fights.
Yeah.
Versus
fight him.
Now I think there's people that go, okay, this guy has some hype behind him, and now I see that he can be beat. So I think he gets more people feeling. He gets less people dodging him. I think he gets more opportunities to get in the ring over the next 2 years.
That's a good take. I never even thought about that. I thought he's just going to retire now because he's not going to get the title. At featherweight,
I don't think he would have gotten 4 fights in the next 2 years if he beat this guy. I think he could get 4 fights in the next 2 years because he lost this fight.
Yeah, I'd love to see him against some of the guys in the top 15.
Exactly. So weirdly enough, as much as I didn't want to see him lose, I think this could end up being something that's positive for his career.
Yeah, I mean, Ilya looked good. I don't know much about him afterwards. I know or beforehand, I know that he's a black belt as well in jiu-jitsu. So maybe he gave Ryan Hall fits that nobody else is going to give him or whatever. But anyway, I want to see Hall fight again. That's all.
Oh yes, always.
All right. To open up the card, we had Trevin Giles, who let me see. I want to see what his record was before. Trevin Giles versus Dracus Duplessis is how you pronounce the name. He made a statement afterwards, and he's like, "This is a very, very common name where I'm from, but I know people have a problem with it." Yeah. So Trevin Giles beat James Krause, knocked out Bevan Lewis, and then beat Roman Dolidze because he lost to two people. Oh, okay. So he's won the 3 fights in a row. This would have been his 4th fight in a row. In the first round, they were going back and forth. Giles looked very loose, striking fast, but he wasn't landing enough. I thought Duplessis landed a lot more. Duplessis also had a lot of opportunities in the first round for grappling and submissions near the end of the round. Duplessis he's weird. He like reacts strangely to feints and strikes. Like, not something a striker would normally do. Like, he's like closing his eyes and flinching and doing this stuff. It's very awkward to watch. But Duplessis opened up in the beginning of the second round. They went back and forth a little bit more. He was more aggressive, and then when he was back against the fence, like his tight guard, which he does keep, like he keeps a tight guard. He shelled up really well, and then it gave him an opportunity for a counter and then a big KO of Giles in the second round. I think he's going to be fun to watch at middleweight. If he had decent takedown defense, he's decent at grappling, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's hard to tell with Trevin Giles because he's not like a world beater right now. So as it stands, I think it's another fun contender at middleweight. He's also a big dude.
Heck yeah.
This is the fight that I wanted to talk about a little bit. I thought it was a stupid decision. Jennifer Maia versus Jessica Ai. She got, her third eye opened up. She's joking about it too, so I think it's all right. It's a clash of heads caused a huge gash on her forehead and cut up her head and was bleeding really bad. She had to get stitches, but she did finish the fight. She outstruck Maia. Here's the thing. The striking was so close, and she got Maia on the ground twice, and she was constantly moving forward. This is one of those scenarios where damage was equal, striking was equal, so I had the advantage. I would have given, I think, the first round to Maia. The second round was a little closer, but I would have given that to Ai, and then the third round was like, I would probably give that to Ai, but the thing is, one of the judges, like, it was 28-29, 28-29, and then it was 30-27. So I'm like, oh, they gave it to Ai. That's cool. One of the judges didn't give a single round to Jessica Ai. You're fucking high. Like, we've been over this 1,000 times.
They probably weren't watching.
Fucking criminals, dude. Yeah, it's early on. No one's here. No one's watching this. No one's going to see this.
It was like, no one. She looks all bloody. I was going to do this.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, she's bloody. -1. You have to put like a 9 or a 10 or something. Oh, not minus? Oh, shit.
Whoops. Would you put?
He's looking over, cheating off the judge. That's good. On the other side. Amari Akhmedov getting a weird split decision loss to Brad Tavares. I don't think Akhmedov won 2 rounds. I don't know how he got a judge to say that he won. Brad Tavares looking good. And Zalkas Zumagulov versus Jerome Rivera getting the first round submission. High elbow. Was it high elbow standing guillotine?
Can't remember.
Decent fights, man. There was a lot of fun fights. I was a little upset at the end of the night because of it's the judging and the refereeing, and I've said it before. It's one of my least favorite things to talk about because it makes me heated, and if I'm talking about it, it's a bad thing. There's There's no good reason to talk about judging and refereeing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they're doing their job, you don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's a shame, and it puts a damper on the sport. But at the same time, most casual fans don't know enough to care, so it really doesn't put any pressure on the UFC to change anything. Like most of the people that bought this pay-per-view didn't see anything wrong with what Gilbert Burns is doing to Stephen Thompson. Like
unless
I
think it's
and if that's the case, then yeah, maybe we should change the rules. But
we've gone on this tangent a lot, and we've talked about it a lot, and I know people who do listen to this probably don't want to hear us droll on about it again. But just to say my piece one more time, these are not video game characters. These are people with lives and children in some cases, right? This is their job. A lot of them do this for a living. And I don't want to hear the thing, get a different job, get a real job, bro. That's a stupid thing to say. That's not a good argument. If you can come up with a better argument, we can have a discussion. These guys are working their ass off. Many times, these guys are some of the hardest working people on the planet. Physically, mentally, they break themselves to not only put on a show, but perform on a consistent basis, and in some cases for like a decade.
Yep.
Right at the highest level, testing, and they're doing it in the most exposed way possible, out there in their underwear in front of you, battling another guy who's trying to kill him in his underwear. Can we give them a little bit of respect and decency and treat it like it fucking matters and get rid of subjectivity from this stupid bullshit? I'm not even talking about judging completely as a whole. The 10-9 must system and all that stuff, I know that there's some wiggle room in there. What I'm saying is, can we have some black and white fucking rules and just treat it like it's a goddamn serious sport?
The UFC has less control over how they address the 10-9 system and judging system than they do over their refs and penalty system.
There's still commission. There's still people who work for the commission, but yes.
Yeah. The UFC absolutely can much more easily put pressure on and get those referees on board with a more clear and decisive system for addressing those issues versus changing the judging and 10-9 system. That's a tall order. Addressing the referee issues,
exactly.
That is something that absolutely can be done and should.
It can be changed right now.
It's achievable.
Right now.
Yep.
You can, and guess what? These guys are professionals. You're going to see the same kind of people who would have succeeded in the old system succeed in the new system. Put the penalties in place, penalize them properly, give them no warning. They don't get warnings anymore. They're like, make it very distinct. Here's a good example. Fingers in the cage, fucking penalty. I don't care. Yeah. -1. If you have your toes in the cage, I wouldn't do it. I would just pull them. Pull the toe.
There's no warnings for holding in the NFL.
Nope. There's no warnings for
there's no warnings for pass interference.
Nope.
There's no warnings. It's a penalty. And yeah, penalties can change the game.
Yes.
It's the reality of it.
Treat it accordingly.
Undisciplined teams that get more penalties, yeah, it can cause them to lose.
Yeah, if you're racking up over 100 yards of penalties a game, that's an entire football field's worth of penalties that you just did. That's a great way to lose a game. Yep. Same thing in the octagon. If you are undisciplined with I still think they should change the gloves. I think that's a simple thing too. I don't know why the fuck they don't do that. If you put your fingers in the cage, if you poke someone in the eye, if you kick someone in the groin, toes in the cage, I am not going to penalize for. I think toes are. We do not have
that's more of a risk to the toes.
Right. So just pull them out. Ref just pull the foot out. Be like, hey, dude, your toes are in the cage. Get them out. Like, pull them out. There's no. Like, even if they were doing it intentionally, you don't have the ability to grab with your toes and pull your body weight the way you do with your fingers. That is why the penalty is in place, is you can grab and pull either up, down, or over, right?
Yes.
Locking in a position that you should not be able to do if you treated it like a wall.
Yep.
Right? If that was a wall, you could push off it. You could push with your foot off a wall. You could, and if your toes were in there, like, yeah, you get a little bit more push, but you're not pulling your body in or holding an opponent down with your toes wrapped in the cage, right?
Yeah.
So there are like hard stance thing. First time someone gets hit in the back of the head, I don't give a shit. I don't care if it's in the last 10 seconds. I don't care if it's in the clap. They hear the clap, and then well, the fight's gonna be over, so it doesn't matter. Nope, no, it's fucking not. This last 10 seconds is the same as the 10 seconds that preceded it. It should be judged accordingly. Don't be fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, it's...
I think we hit it. Like, it's clear what should be happening, but like I said, I don't think there's the impetus or the pressure on the UFC to actually make that change.
Impetus.
Which is a shame.
I've heard that word used. Does that mean, like, incentive?
They don't feel the pressure to change.
Yeah. All right. Did you want to talk about another fight coming up?
I wanted to talk about the poster that got put out for a fight that got scheduled, which enormously pissed me off. UFC 265.
Okay. Yeah.
The UFC. All right. UFC once again took their most arguably at the moment decorated and successful champion in UFC history and threw him as a co-main event.
Well, she's not. DJ was. How dare you?
To an interim title.
I agree with what you're saying.
Between a person that some people know and a person that almost nobody knows, but is an exciting up and comer. What?
We're gonna talk. We'll break down this fight again when it comes up.
We'll get there when it gets there.
Because it's an
August 7th. Go look
7th.
at the poster and just go wrap your head around. And this, I would argue, this is what pisses me off about this. It is an evident result of how horrible the UFC has been at marketing Amanda Nunes.
I agree. They've done a really bad job.
Yep. And now they're going to put together one of the most poorly constructed cards. A good fight card, albeit when we get to it, it'll be fun to break down. But in terms of who should be the main event on this card, it is stupid that you would put Amanda Nunes as a co-main event to Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane for an interim fight when it's really an interim fight only being scheduled because they're having contract issues with their current champion.
Yeah, so I talked about that when it came up. But how do you feel about that?
It's hard to know what really is happening on the back end, but from most of what I've heard on the back end, it's that essentially they gave him a warning, and then like less than a day or two after the warning that they were going to do an interim fight, they scheduled it. Like there really wasn't a lot of communication between when they told Francis that they were going to do it and when they just did it and threw it out there. I mean, it's obvious the UFC is trying to put pressure on him to, bend the knee and go along with what they want.
So if you're following it, like he's been very vocal about the pay and stuff. And, when what's his face, one of the Paul brothers, I don't know if it was I think it was a Logan Paul fight versus Mayweather, how he came out with like 10 million or whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter the number. It was a lot of money. He was like, what are we doing wrong? I said my piece on this. I'll say it. I want to I'd like some pushback, and I want to know like what you think. So the way I feel is we've seen a lot of fighters get into this position of a little bit of power, right? Where they get into like a championship where they have a little bit of fame and they're under a current contract, and now they have a problem with it. Now they're like, oh, I deserve more money. And that's when they start making a stink and saying they don't want to fight and that kind of stuff. They took a gamble, right? The gamble is I'm gonna make it big enough to sign a bigger contract and make a ton of money on the back end of this, as opposed to going to Bellator and making more money in the process by getting sponsorships and other things in the like on the way up, and then possibly less money at the very top, right? The very best fighters in the UFC make more money than the very best fighters in Bellator, but I would argue that the people in the middle have more opportunity to go out and make more money elsewhere in Bellator. So these guys, I just use that as an example. It's ONE FC, pick your organization.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this in the past. A lot of fighters get upset after they hit their popularity, but if the shoe is on the other foot, or more to say, if the fighter had not successfully won, 3 in a row on his 5-fight contract, and he's looking at possibly getting cut by the UFC, but he still got guaranteed money. He was still paid. I obviously his tune wouldn't be different. It'd be like, oh, I'll fight off the next 2 fights. The whole takeaway from that scenario is you're gambling. If you ask for more money up front and you say I deserve more money and they say no, you're gambling. Like you're saying, and you walk away, right? That's a part of the negotiation process. And either you win or you lose, but you accepted those terms. And I've made it very clear. I said it last week. I've made it very clear. I don't agree with the UFC's practices. I think they deserve, fighters do deserve to get paid more, at least compensatory with other organizations. Obviously, like getting paid up to 30 or 40% of the gross, right? We've talked about that before. I just think that if you sign a contract in plain terms, and there's no championship clause in it, there's no advertisement clause in it, there's no clauses that allow you to make more money on the back end, that's on you and your management team. And I think that's the problem with Ngannou is now all of a sudden, he's the champ and he finally has some negotiating power and he wants more money and he doesn't agree with the practices. And now he wants to make a stink for himself, not for other fighters, by the way. He's making a stink for himself. And the UFC is like, we don't fucking care. The belts literally mean nothing. This came out in the deposition in court. The belts are a creation of the UFC, for the UFC, by the UFC. They do not mean anything. They do not hold any value unless otherwise stated in your contract. We can create belts and destroy belts as we see fit. It means nothing. So your belt means jack squat. It means the same thing as that interim belt they just made. They don't give a shit about you or your unwillingness to fight anymore for your contract. They will hold you until you quit. So that's my piece on that. I think that they need to be more diligent up front and understand, I need to look out for my best interests. And then go ahead.
I'm going to take a very different take on this. I absolutely, especially because of where the pendulum currently is and has been in the UFC, I completely get how they approach it and why they approach it when they do, especially because of the nature of the game. You have no negotiating power as a UFC fighter entering the UFC. None whatsoever. You have no negotiating power really coming up. Zero. The only time, and there's really only 2 that you have negotiating power is if you're a pay-per-view draw or you're champion. That's it. And those are, pay-per-view draw, a little bit larger window, champion, small window statistically. You have an extremely small window of negotiation. And because of what I would argue is the quasi or just straight up illegal way that the UFC constructs their contracts for 1099 fighters, which I have a little bit of experience in from being in a class action lawsuit about being a 1099 employee. The way the UFC constructs their contracts absolutely would never fly in any business anywhere else in the country. Fighters in the way that the UFC is constructed and operates should never be 1099 contracts to begin with. And the way that they structure those contracts are some complete Vegas mafia shenanigans. How they still get away with it is still baffling to me. But because of how quickly essentially people can get to the top and then come off the top, and how little negotiation power that individuals get in the UFC, and how weak attempts have been in the past to try and either make changes from a group format or, unionize or get people together. The couple middling attempts that have happened in the past, there really isn't a forum or fighters advocation group or anything of that form or fashion that they can fall back on, like in other sports organizations that they can. There's no players association, which there should be, but the UFC has been very, very effective at stamping out any possibility of that up to this point. So Francis taking his shot, who knows, especially heavyweight, who knows what could happen next fight. Yeah, I absolutely get him trying to make that stand, because the money he's getting now at heavyweight champion it's stupid. I mean, and like you said, across the board, it's stupid how low UFC fighters get paid from the moment they step in the ring to the time that they're champion. Across the board, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
But, and yeah, he's going out for himself. It's not like he's, Spartacus trying to create the stand of like, no, we're doing this for all UFC fighters, but, really no one is. So there's not really a model to follow for that.
There are people, but they don't fight anymore.
Exactly. So if the only thing the UFC will even kind of give you the wiggle room to do is advocate for yourself, and even then, it's a super uphill battle. Like, yeah, I got no problem with him doing it. I hope every single champion, I wish every champion would be doing what he's doing across the board. I wish every single champion in their place right now took that same stand and went, all right, this is stupid. This is stupid what we're getting paid for this.
So I agree with his right to basically disagree with the terms of his contract now, because they, at the time he signed them,
you can sign an illegal contract and it's still an illegal contract.
Right. Right. No. Like I said, their practices, I'm not down for it. What I'm saying is I agree with his ability to, like, the right for him to do those things and say, hey, I'm the champ. Guess what? Like, I get to decide, and people are going to put pressure on you, and they're not going to watch your fights anymore because they know I'm the champ, and you're not letting me fight. So I agree with his right to do that. But also, he has to understand that there are consequences to his actions. So complaining about it afterwards does me no good. Like, stay firm. Say, hey, I gave him my terms. These are what I wanted to do, and they're telling me no. So until they come to terms with me, I'm not going to fight, or whatever it might be, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to understand there are consequences for your actions, good or bad. And whether you're fighting for a just reason or an unjust reason, there are consequences to breaking the rules or the status quo, right? When you break rules, you have to accept the punishment that follow those rules. Otherwise, you're setting a precedent that any rule doesn't matter. So what if you sign a contract in the future and then the UFC is like, oh, well, we don't like what you did, so we're going to offer you bullshit fights for your 3 fights this year, or vice versa, or any other fighter can just say, I don't want to fight in these contracts. Then we have complete anarchy. So you have to abide by the rules of your contract while disputing the terms of the contract. And I totally agree with his right to do that. I wish he had a get out of jail free card, like where he could just like terminate the contract and explore the free market. That's what I think more fighters should do, is fight to the end of their contract and explore the free market, or don't even go to the UFC to begin with.
No 1099 contract should legally be able to bar you from other organizations.
That's a huge problem I have with it.
In the way that, and like I talk about, in the way that they're structured, the UFC should not have 1099 contracts.
No,
the way that they market the fighters, the fact that they wear, even purely if you go and dive deep into how 1099 works, the fact that they wear UFC uniforms effectively nullifies their ability to be considered independent contractors. The moment you put on a company uniform and you are issued a company uniform, and especially ones that have their name on them, the existence of the fight kits should have nullified in court the fact that they're 1099 contractors. But granted, the UFC is still a billion-dollar organization, and there are not a lot of fighters out there that can get a lawyer group together, or lawyers together, that are willing to put up that type of legal fight or have the money to do it.
So, I mean, I don't think we're at ends with odds here. I think we both disagree with certain things that, like, obviously how the UFC operates, but I put a lot of onus on the fighters. I guess more so just because they have the foreknowledge now. Whereas the fighters in the early 2000s, people don't remember like this. The UFC existed before the internet was a
Oh
popular
yeah.
thing. Okay. And then when it did become popular, it's still like we're talking about like underground stuff. So information doesn't get passed as freely back then as it does now. That being said, we are in the information era. There is plenty of information and data out there for you to consume. And if you do a basic Google search or, I don't know, hear with your ears anything talked about when it comes to MMA, especially UFC, and you hear that people are underpaid, you should know that going in. So be more diligent and, well, I just,
What happens when you're dealing with a monopoly?
but they're a
That's
monopsony, not a monopoly. So they drive the demand, not the supply.
they're
They're,
damn near ineffective within the United States. Yeah, I get Bellator exists and there's that option, but they're damn near an effective monopoly on the sport.
so you're not wrong, but it's called a monopsony. A monopoly is someone who a monopoly is a organization that controls the supply. Right. So I have all of the diamonds. I'm De Beers,
Yeah.
so I control all the diamonds. Whereas a monopsony controls the demand. So the UFC controls, like, they're purchasing the services, right? So they control the demand. But the thing is,
They control a good amount of the supply too. In terms
no,
of lower organizations.
no, not fighters. The fighter is the fighter is the commodity, right? So they don't control how many fighters there are. They control,
but effectively, if you want to be a professional MMA fighter,
I would argue Bellator or One is a better move right now. It starting out, unless you already have popularity, because it gives you the opportunity to test the waters of MMA, professional MMA especially, get your brand out there. Like, I know it's small.
yeah.
I would say World Series of Fighting or the PFL.
But what I was trying to get is when you have a situation where you have a monopsony, I have less of a problem with people entering into those contracts and getting into the organization and then fighting those organizations from within. Nobody from outside Amazon is going to get Amazon factory workers to unionize. You have to take those jobs and you have to be in the system in order to enact that change from within.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
to be a UFC
absolutely.
fighter, if you want the UFC fighters to get better pay, if you want them to, if you want that system to change in any form or fashion, they have to take those contracts and they have to fight those contracts because those contracts are bullshit. So they are going to have to enter into that system and use the opportunities that they get to push back on the UFC and make them look bad. So that
makes sense. You're right.
Yeah. It's not like not like they're innocent. It's not like UFC fighters are innocent in this mix, and I don't argue that, but I do.
Look at fighters like DC. You're gonna tell me he helps the cases of other fighters? He's one of the most popular fighters. He's an analyst. He's a commentator. He gets to do all the things UFC, and they take care of him really well. So he shuts up about it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is you have fighters who have the publicity, they have the ability to get information out there, and they never take it. Why? Because they're being taken care of. So the fighters who aren't taken care of make a big stink, and then they never get the popularity. So it's like, if you're going to do this, do it the right way. Fight out your contract, and then when you're at the peak of your career and you know that, like, I have the ability to tell you no, and I'm going to. I think for as much shit as I've given John Jones, I'm all for him doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah. I think the hard thing is that a lot of fighters have that idea in their head, and then they miss their opportunity the right way. Because then when you come at it after the fact, it becomes easy to let someone go. When you get fighters that start to push back on the UFC on the back end of their career versus the front end.
Well, not just in the back end of their career.
Because you never know when that back end starts or when that slide starts. And if the UFC can put you in the frame of just being, oh, you just want this because you're on the back end, they shovel those people out real easy.
I think there's a better way to combat this. I don't have the answer right now, but
and I don't think the answer, well, no one does, because it hasn't change. So we're still trying to figure out what the right answer is. And I think Francis is just trying something.
I think he's doing
it because there's no model set.
It's rubbing me the wrong way. I don't know why, but I think it's his management team obviously has fucked up somehow. They've done something wrong in the way that they're doing it, because now Ngannou looks like someone who doesn't want to fight, which, right or wrong, it's not a good look for him. That's what I'm like. It's rubbing me the wrong way.
I get that.
I think Ngannou's a great, again, like I said this earlier, I think about other fighters. I think Ngannou's a great person with a wholesome background and a great story. I think he's fantastic as a human being. Right. So taking any sort of angle and making him look like he's not any of that, like he's not.
Well, I guess how much of that is MMA and UFC media?
No, it's not. It's his management team straight up texting. Like, that's the problem. Like, that's why I said he needs a new management team. Like, you can't put the stink on your fighter like that and make it seem like you're going back and forth with the UFC in a public arena. If he wants to advocate for more pay for himself and other fighters via Twitter, that's fine. I'm okay with it. It's when you start being like, oh, I didn't say that. You said that. No, you said this. No, I didn't say that. That's the shit that rubs me the wrong way. And his management team is doing that, and he's not, like, he needs a new management team is what I'm saying.
That's fair. Oh, yeah. I will agree with that for sure.
All right. We've, again, talked on fighter pay, which we talk about every other episode, if not every episode. We have talked on the rules and regulations, which I am now mentioning every episode because I want to drive. I seriously want to drive that home.
We touched on judging.
Dude, I just
we
like
hit all the good stuff.
I know, and I'm not going to rehash it. I'm just like, I'm very adamant about what I'm saying, and I believe in it because I don't think enough people are talking about it every time. It needs to be driven home, and people need to know. So for the little audience that I do have, or that we get, like, for them to understand it, maybe one of them talks to someone else, and then they talk to someone else, and then a couple people bring up a stink. Anyway, thank you guys so much for making it through. I really appreciate it. Subscribe, like, all those good things. Comment down below. Let me know how crazy I am and how sick of me you are bitching about everything. Let's see. We probably I want to do a breakdown for this fight card.
There's a couple good fight cards coming up.
Yeah. I want to do a breakdown, maybe hopefully later this week. I've just been working a lot lately and working late hours, so I haven't been getting into it. But I appreciate y'all. You got anything else?
Yeah. No, y'all take care out there, and we debated on a lot of things, so let us know in the comments down below what you think, or if you have a different take than us, or
tell me how to fix the UFC, please.
Oh yes, please.
You tell me how to fix
good,
the UFC.
We'll blast it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down for any sort of constructive argument or criticism. All right, guys, be good. Love y'all.